What's going on, YouTube? This is SG1 Sports, and according to the FPI, Tennessee is closer to Florida than they are to Georgia. Let's break it all down. The FPI is 15.2 for Tennessee, meaning against an average team on a neutral field, they would win by 15.2 points. They're ranked number 12. So I have no issues with number 12. I think that's a pretty fair spot for Tennessee. But it's the number at 15.2 compared to Georgia. Georgia's 27.4. That means on a neutral field, the FPI would say that Georgia would beat Tennessee by about 12 points. And what's crazy is Florida's at 12.7. So they're only about a field goal. They would be a field goal underdog against Tennessee on a neutral field, meaning Tennessee at Florida. FPI might favor Florida in that game, and I definitely disagree with that. I think Tennessee's much closer to Georgia. I would only say on a neutral field, maybe a 10-point underdog, 7, 8, 9, 10 points, probably in that range. So again, FPI, as far as where they rank Tennessee, pretty fair, but the FBI still thinks that there's that big gap. They've got Ohio State, Alabama, and Georgia, and then a big gap with everyone else. And I just don't think college football is that way anymore. I think there's much more parity, and I think Tennessee, like I said, is much closer to Georgia. They're projected only to go 8.2 and 3.9, so really an 8-4 record for Tennessee. That would be a disappointment in my opinion. I think this team should at least get to 9-3 this year. You look at the non-conference schedule, it's not bad. They're going to have some challenging games. They played Texas A&M and Alabama out of the West, so obviously those are going to be tough games. And then Georgia, and I guess if you lost all three of those, you slip up against Florida or South Carolina, you could see them possibly going 8-4. But I think again that is really underrating Tennessee. I think their FBI should be closer to 9-3. They have a 0% chance of going undefeated. I mean, come on, they've got a chance, at least like a 5% chance, I would think. But no, the FBI says it's not happening, and that would include the SEC championship, by the way. So yeah, I guess beating Alabama, beating Georgia, then beating Alabama again, or beating LSU, that's obviously going to be very, very tough, but I wouldn't put it at 0. They have a 98.1% chance of getting to a bowl game, and I'd be shocked if they did not make it to at least 6-6 this year. They have only a 5.4% chance to win the division. Again, this is where I disagree with the FPI. You look at Tennessee at that number. Florida is at 3%. So they're not really giving anyone else a chance outside of Georgia. Georgia's number is at 89.5. Again, the FBI pretty much guaranteeing that Georgia is going to win the SEC East. And yes, they're the favorites, but Tennessee gets them at home. If they can win that game, they could get in. So I think that number should be much higher, probably closer to 25, 30%. 5.4 is a really low percentage. Again, I think Tennessee has a much better chance than that of winning the East. All right, winning the conference, winning the whole thing, 1.2% chance that Tennessee wins the SEC championship. That, again, is very, very low. I would probably put it closer to 10%. To me, you've got the real contenders are Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee, and LSU. And, I think it's fairly even between LSU, Georgia, and Alabama. Tennessee, a little bit behind those teams. I would agree with that, but 1.2 is a little bit low. I would put them, if I really had to narrow it down, they might wind up at like 8%, something like that. But they definitely have a shot. How about making it to the college football playoff? A 2.5% chance, so not much of a chance to do that either. Again, we talk about paths to the playoff. Let's say they go 11-1 and their only loss is to Georgia. They're going to have a real shot to get in. Or, well, if they go 11-1 and lose to Alabama and they beat Georgia, they're probably going to go to the SEC championship. And it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough to go on the road and beat Alabama. And then again, you do have Georgia. So it's going to be hard for Tennessee to get there. But if they could somehow knock off Alabama for the second straight year, they might not have to get to the SEC championship to make the playoff. So again, I do think that number is pretty low, maybe a little higher than 2.5%, but that 1.2% on the win the conference, that one really, and the 5.4 on win division, those numbers are just ridiculously low. Make it to the national championship, only a 0.7% chance that they do that. Again, it's very unlikely, but this team could possibly do it and then win it all. A 0.2% chance that this team wins the national championship. I would put that number closer to 1 or 2%, but yeah, it's going to be tough. They're a long shot for sure. I wouldn't say they have no chance, but You look at what they've got to do to get through the SEC first, and then if they did make it into the playoff, then you've got to play 2 more really tough games. Odds are definitely against Tennessee winning it all, but again, I would say they have a chance. FPI, though, not giving them much of a chance, just 0.2%. So overall, again, I think the FPI is underrating Tennessee a little bit. Again, with those numbers to win in the SEC at 5.4% in the division, 1.2 in the conference, those numbers are really low. Everything else here, though, is pretty fair for Tennessee.